My wife divorced me and left me with nothing. She even laughed and said, "You'll die broke and alone." So I went to donate plasma for $40. But after the nurse checked my blood report, 3 men in suits came rushing in. "We've been searching for you for 32 years, they said. All right, Reddit. This happened 6 months ago, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. My ex-wife told me I'd die broke and alone. She was wrong about pretty much everything, but we'll get to that. Here's how my life went from a complete wreck to something I could have never imagined. I'm Ethan, 45M, and up until about a year ago, I honestly believed I had things figured out. I'd been married to Jessica, 42F, for 17 years. Worked at the same marketing company for 18 years. Owned a small home in the suburbs, had 2 cars, a steady retirement plan, nothing extraordinary but steady and comfortable. Basically the budget-friendly version of the American dream. To understand how insane things eventually got, you need to know how ordinary everything was before it all fell apart. I grew up in a blue-collar Ohio household. Dad was an electrician, Mom worked part-time at the local library. They raised me with simple values. Show up, work hard, don't spend what you don't have. Not groundbreaking, just basic common sense that feels rare nowadays. I paid my own way through state college by working nights at a grocery store. Graduated with a marketing degree and $18K in loans, which I cleared in 6 years. That's who I've always been, consistent, responsible, maybe even a little boring. But I always believed boring was better than being broke. My job was solid. I was a senior account manager at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm with regional accounts. Nothing flashy, but I was good at it. I understood clients, delivered results, and built relationships. I'd climbed from junior copywriter to managing a team of 8. On my 10-year anniversary, they gave me a plaque and a bonus. Jessica posted a proud photo of us online that day. In hindsight, that might have been the last time she actually seemed proud of me. After that, the comparison started. Everyone else's husband is doing better. Brandon made partner last month. Why aren't you aiming higher? Brandon, her friend Ashley's husband, became her benchmark for what a real man should be. And it didn't stop there. She compared our home to everyone else's remodels, compared our Honda Accord to our friends' new Teslas, compared our quiet weekends to their Europe trips. Never mind that Brandon worked 70 hours a week and barely saw his kids. Never mind that Ashley constantly vented about feeling like a single parent. Jessica only cared about the shiny things. One year, Lauren's husband bought her a Rolex. Jessica hinted, "So, what are you getting me?" I saved up and bought her an $800 necklace. She barely looked at it. Later, I found out she returned it and bought shoes. Didn't even bother mentioning it. The truth is, I actually liked my life. My job paid around $92K a year plus bonuses, good benefits, reasonable hours. I could help my dad on weekends, watch my nephew's games, use my vacation days. But Jessica only saw what we didn't have. Then last year, everything collapsed. The company lost its 3 biggest clients within 2 months, none of it my fault. One got bought out, one went bankrupt, and one brought marketing in-house. Corporate decided to cut costs, and employees with long tenure and full benefits were suddenly too expensive. 6 of us were laid off in a single day. I came home stunned and told Jessica her face wasn't worried, it was angry. "What do you mean they let you go? What are we supposed to do now?" "I'll find something else. I have severance, unemployment, strong references. The job market isn't." "You're 45, Ethan. No one is hiring middle-aged men. Do you understand what this does to me?" To us, that conversation set the tone for everything that followed. There was no, "We'll handle this together." Just, "You failed." Within a week, I was served divorce papers. She'd filed the day after I lost my job. Her lawyer, Patricia Rothman, the kind of shark who specializes in gutting men in court, went straight for the throat. They portrayed me as an unemployed burden who couldn't support himself, let alone a marriage. Never mind that I paid the mortgage for 17 years. Never mind that I was the primary earner for most of our marriage. Never mind that I paid for Jessica to take a marketing certification class she never finished. At our first meeting, Patricia treated me like a criminal, demanded every financial document I had, questioned my spending, tried to make a big deal out of a used motorcycle I bought 8 years earlier for $3,500, and later sold for almost the same price. But according to her, that made me some irresponsible man-child burning money on toys. Meanwhile, Jessica conveniently left out a few details of her own, like the $4,200 she blew on a Nashville girls' trip the previous year. or the $1,800 designer purse she insisted on for Christmas. She also didn't mention the 3 different business ventures she'd started over 5 years, each funded by our joint account, and none of them earning even a single dollar. But in court, her lawyer only highlighted my recent bank statements, unemployment checks barely covering rent, the occasional takeout order when I was too drained to cook. She framed it as me losing control financially, ignoring the fact that for 17 years, I'd been the stable one while Jessica bounced from one part-time job to another and from hobby to hobby. My lawyer was good, but he was swamped with cases, and once my severance began shrinking, I couldn't keep up. He billed $300 an hour, emails, calls, document reviews, everything counted. I burned through nearly $8,000 before we even stepped into the courtroom. Jessica had her parents backing her financially, and judging by how prepared she was, she'd been planning this long before I lost my job. She showed the judge spreadsheets of every transaction I'd made for years, twisting perfectly normal expenses into evidence of irresponsibility. Meanwhile, she painted herself as financially vulnerable, despite being the one who filed for divorce before I'd even had a chance to look for new work. The judge saw one thing. I was unemployed, she wasn't. I had no immediate job prospects, she did. That was enough. I walked away with my clothes, my dad's old watch, and a few personal items. That's it. Jessica kept the house until it sold, and her legal fees came out of the proceeds before anything else was split. The car I drove went to her too, since it was in both our names and she needed reliable transportation. My 401k was divided. Savings evaporated thanks to legal costs. When it was all over, I had exactly $183 in my checking account and a storage unit full of my life packed into cardboard boxes. I moved into a tiny studio in a rundown building where the elevator only worked sometimes. Maybe 400 square feet total. My bed was a used futon that smelled like someone else's bad decisions. But the worst part wasn't the apartment. It was the night the divorce became official. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. Jessica, I almost ignored it, but some tiny part of me hoped she might show a shred of humanity, maybe even apologize. I answered. "Hi, Ethan," she said, sounding cheerful, almost thrilled. "Just wanted to tell you that you're going to die broke and alone. That's what happens to boring men like you." Then she mentioned Brandon, my former business partner, my college friend, my best man, the guy I helped get hired at the firm. "Brandon and I are together now," she said casually, like she was sharing a weather update. "He always said you were holding me back. We're going to Cancun next month. When's the last time you ever took me anywhere?" Couldn't even respond. My brain just shut down. "Well, anyway," she finished, "enjoy your pathetic little life. Don't call me again." She laughed as she hung up. I sat in that depressing apartment for hours, staring at the wall, hearing her words on repeat. "You'll die alone and broke." The next 2 months were pure survival. I applied for around 200 jobs, got maybe 15 interviews, 3 final rounds, 0 offers. The market was brutal, and companies weren't lining up to hire 45-year-old managers with a gap in employment. I did freelancing on Fiverr, $25 blog posts, $50 basic social media packages. Barely enough to keep the lights on. I was living on ramen and canned soup from the discount grocery store. Lost weight simply because I couldn't afford enough food. My mom called once a week from her retirement community in Florida. She couldn't help financially, but she cared. And every time I lied, "Things are getting better, Mom. I've got some leads." She knew I was lying, but she didn't push. By month 3, I had $40 left. Rent was due in a week. That's when I noticed the flyer stapled to a telephone pole. Donate plasma. Earn up to $40 per visit. I'd walked past the plasma center on Fletcher Street countless times without giving it a thought. But $40 was $40, enough for groceries and maybe a little breathing room. The place was as depressing as you'd expect. The plasma center looked exactly as depressing as you'd expect. Flickering fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, plastic chairs that probably hadn't been replaced since the late 90s, and medical equipment that seemed like leftovers from a hospital clearance auction. About 8 people waited in the lobby, all wearing the same weary, desperate expression. A young guy in the corner, maybe 23, tattoos all over his face, bounced his leg nonstop. An older woman clutched a worn-out purse like it held her entire life. A couple in their 30s whispered frantically about rent. None of us were there out of kindness. We were there because we needed the cash. The walls were plastered with posters bragging about how donating plasma saves lives, and how you could earn up to $400 a month. Someone had scribbled underneath one of them. If you're lucky. The carpet was that industrial type that could survive a bomb but looked like it already had. And everything smelled like a mix of disinfectant and hopelessness. I filled out the stack of forms, medical history, medications, the long list of drugs I'd never taken. The clipboard didn't even have a pen attached, so I had to ask for one. The receptionist, Paula, didn't even raise her eyes fully to look at me. First time? You'll get 40 today, 60 if you come back within the week. I need your photo ID and social security card, she said in a voice worn down by repetition. She copied my documents and slid more paperwork toward me. Someone will call you shortly. Water cooler's over there. Stay hydrated. The cooler looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton era, but the form said hydration was important, so I drank. The water tasted like plastic, and regret about 20 minutes later, a nurse called my name. Ethan Williams. She was maybe around 30, ponytail, cartoon print scrubs with Snoopy on them. Her name tag read Amy. She led me into a small exam room with a duct-taped reclining chair and machines I didn't recognize, though they at least looked newer than everything else in the building. All right, Ethan, I'll check your vitals, ask a few health questions, and draw some blood. Donation itself takes about an hour. Any concerns? How often can I do this? I asked twice a week with a day in between. Some regulars come in like clockwork, she said while wrapping the blood pressure cuff around my arm. And for a moment I had this sinking feeling like this place might become part of my weekly routine. Over 78, she said. Heart rate looks good. You're actually healthier than most people who come through here. She filled several vials with my blood, labeled them, and told me she'd be back after the quick test. She wasn't back in 5 minutes, or 10 or 15 through the small window. I watched her at a computer. At first she looked bored, then confused, then borderline shocked. She picked up the phone and started talking rapidly while pointing at the screen. Another employee, an older guy who seemed like the lab supervisor, came over. He looked at the monitor, then at me, then back at the monitor again, mouth open like a cartoon character. A third staff member joined them. All three stared at the computer like it was displaying something impossible. Amy kept talking on the phone, nodding, taking notes, scrolling, rechecking. Finally, she came back, hands slightly trembling. Sir, Ethan, I need you to stay right here. Please don't move, I have to make another call. My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? Do I have some disease? No, nothing like that, but someone needs to come speak with you. Very soon, she said before slipping out again. This time I could hear fragments through the cracked door. Confirmed 3 times, genetic markers match. Yes, match, you need to come now. 20 minutes later, the front door burst open. 3 men in expensive suits rushed inside, not walked, rushed. The suits probably cost more than my old Honda. The man leading them was older, maybe mid-60s, with silver hair and a charcoal suit that screamed money. He moved straight toward my room with purpose, like he'd trained for this moment. When he stepped inside, he just looked at me for a long moment. And to my shock, his eyes filled with tears. After 32 years, he whispered, voice cracking, we finally found you. I blinked. I'm sorry, who are you? He seemed to snap back into professional mode. Straightened his jacket. My name is Robert Sterling, he said, CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Then, Mr. Williams, what we found in your blood was nothing short of unbelievable. They moved me out of the donation area and into an actual private office in the back, dark wood desk, leather chairs, degrees framed on the wall. One of the men in suits turned out to be the center's director, who apparently dropped everything the moment Amy called him. The other was Sterling's head of research. Dr. Philip Hayes. Robert Sterling sat across from me, hands clasped, this 65-year-old billionaire trying desperately to steady himself. Mr. Williams, he said, each word slow and heavy. Have you ever heard of Kellerman syndrome? No. He opened a folder and slid it toward me, pages of charts, medical graphs, numbers, none of which meant anything to me. It's a rare genetic condition that attacks a child's nervous system. Usually starts between ages 3 and 8. At first it looks like clumsiness, dropping things, struggling with buttons, but it progresses fast. He paused, eyes fixed on one of the pages like it was a ghost from his past. The disease gradually destroys motor function. Walking becomes difficult, then impossible. Fine motor skills vanish. The nervous system basically shuts down, wrong signals, then fewer signals, then no signals at all. Sometimes their mind goes too, not always, but often. And there is no cure. Not traditionally, anyway. Children rarely live more than 18 months after diagnosis. He took out another document, an old photo worn from being copied too many times. A little girl with dark hair, his eyes, sitting in a wheelchair but smiling bravely. In 1992, my daughter Rebecca was diagnosed, he said quietly. She was 9, played soccer, loved gymnastics, always running around. Then one day she tripped, a small fall, but it kept happening. His voice cracked. We went to 3 specialists before one finally recognized it. We tried everything, experimental trials in the US, Europe, Asia, even treatments that probably only gave us false hope. I spent over $2 million trying to save her. None of it worked. I watched her lose the ability to walk, to feed herself, even to write her own name. She passed away 3 months before her 12th birthday. And I couldn't do a damn thing. The room went still. The other 2 men looked away. They'd clearly heard this story before and knew how much it cost him to relive it. I'm sorry, I said, but I don't see what this has to do with me. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. Mr. Williams, after his daughter died, Robert sold his software company and built Sterling Pharmaceuticals with one goal, to find a cure for Kellerman's. For 32 years, we've collected and tested blood samples searching for a genetic marker that could lead to a treatment. Hundreds of thousands of samples. And you have it. Robert's voice dropped to a whisper. You carry a genetic mutation so rare we estimate only 3 to 5 people on the entire planet have it. Your blood creates antibodies that don't just treat Kellerman's, they reverse it. They stop the disease completely. I blinked at them. You're saying my blood can cure this? Yes, Dr. Hayes said. Your plasma contains proteins that rewrite the faulty genetic sequence causing the disorder. We tested it 3 times here and twice in our Boston lab. There's no error. Is that possible? We don't entirely know yet, Hayes admitted. The mutation is natural, something you were simply born with. It's dominant, so if you ever had children, there's a good chance they'd have it too. But finding someone with this exact marker, he shook his head. It's astronomically unlikely. Robert leaned in. Mr. Williams, we want to offer you a contract. We need ongoing plasma donations to manufacture a viable therapy. This isn't a one-and-done situation. It's a partnership. How much? $15 million. The silence hit like a brick. Sorry, what? $15 million, he repeated. $10 million up front, $5 million over the next 5 years as you donate on a scheduled basis. We'll cover all medical costs, provide full health insurance, and work around your availability. My brain just stopped. 20 minutes earlier, I was a broke, newly divorced mess who couldn't pay rent. And now a billionaire was offering me life-changing money for my plasma. I need time to think, I managed. Of course. Robert handed me a business card. My personal number is on the back. Call any time. I walked out of the plasma center in a daze, shuffled the 3 blocks to my tiny studio, and sat on the futon staring at the card. Then I called the only person I trust, my sister Kate. She's a paralegal in Chicago, sharp as a blade. Kate doesn't take nonsense from anyone. Kate, something insane happened, I told her. After I explained everything, she was quiet for a moment. Ethan, you need a lawyer, a real one. Someone who handles medical and IP contracts. This is way bigger than $15 million. If your blood is worth this much, you need protection. I can't afford a lawyer. You're about to afford 10. Let me call Diana Patterson. Pharmaceutical contracts are her specialty. Don't sign anything until she sees it. 2 days later, I met Diana in her downtown office. Early 40s, all business, the kind of person who reads legal documents like novels. Mr. Williams, she said, I reviewed Sterling Pharmaceuticals. $15 million is nothing compared to what your genetic material is worth. Kellerman's affects thousands of families worldwide. If they make a treatment using your plasma, that's a multi-billion-dollar market, and you're the only donor. She opened spreadsheets. We're asking for $18 million up front, 5% royalty forever, full medical care for life, a seat on their research advisory board, and the right to negotiate with other companies if Sterling stalls. They'll never agree. They will. Without you, they have nothing. She was right. Diana handled everything. Sterling tried to drop the royalty to 2%, but she pushed back with financial projections. They ended at 5% with a minimum guaranteed payment. The advisory seat was a fight, but eventually they gave me voting rights on all Kellerman-related matters. 3 weeks after walking in for a $40 plasma donation, I watched an $8 million transfer hit my account. The remaining $10 million arrived 2 days later, placed into trusts and investment accounts Diana set up. I went from $183 to $18 million in under a month. I paid my rent a year ahead, then called my mom. But money didn't fix everything. I was still divorced, jobless, living in a depressing studio, and unsure of my purpose. That's when Diana said, "Start a foundation. You'll get tax benefits, and more importantly, you can help families who can't afford treatment." So I created the William Sterling Foundation for Kellerman's research. Robert insisted his name be in it. Our mission: make sure every child with Kellerman's got treatment, no matter their family's income. Sterling agreed to give the therapy at cost to foundation-approved patients. I paid the rest. The first child we helped was Lily, an 8-year-old whose parents had drained everything trying to save her. The treatment would cost $180,000 a year for at least 3 years. Impossible for them. Through the foundation, we covered it all. When I met Lily 3 months into treatment, she was in therapy, practicing simple hand movements, slowly regaining what the disease had taken. And for the first time, I felt like all of this had meaning. Lily lifted a small block with her left hand. Slow, shaky, but she did it. She set it on another block, and her trainer smiled, marking it down. Lily looked up at her mom, glowing. "I did it, Mom, did you see?" Michelle just broke. She started crying. Tom hugged her, and he was crying too. I stood there awkwardly, feeling my throat tighten. Later, Michelle showed me a video of Lily running in their backyard, laughing with their dog, 2 weeks old. The same kid who couldn't hold a pencil 6 months ago was now sprinting like any normal 8-year-old. "You gave us our daughter back," Michelle sobbed, gripping my hands. We were planning her funeral. "Now she's talking about what she wants to be for Halloween. She says you're her superhero." That hit me harder than the money ever did. This wasn't about wealth. This was about saving kids who were running out of time, giving families hope again. I went home that night, sat in my mostly unfurnished apartment, and cried for the first time since my divorce. Relief, purpose, and the realization that my life finally meant something. In 6 months, 42 children received treatment through the foundation. 42 families went from planning funerals to planning birthdays. The monthly updates were incredible. Lily writing full sentences, a boy named Connor taking his first steps in 8 months, Sophie going back to school. Robert and I met often, discussing research and foundation work. He treated me like a real partner, even invited me to board meetings. One day over coffee, he said quietly, "Rebecca would have liked you. She wanted to cure diseases. In a way, you're doing what she never got to do." Then 2 months ago, everything changed again. Diana called. "Ethan, have you seen the news about Morrison and Associates?" "No." "Why would I? You need to sit down." She sent a link. The headline froze me. Former marketing executives charged in multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. The article explained it all: fake vendors, fake invoices, offshore accounts. Over 3 years, nearly $4.3 million stolen. And the names charged? Brandon Walsh and Jessica Williams, my ex-business partner, my ex-wife. The story laid out exactly how they'd done it. Brandon, with his authority to approve vendors. Jessica, who knew the payment systems from her old accounts payable job. They started small and escalated to massive fake contracts. One shell company billed nearly $800,000 alone. Worse, the theft had helped create the financial crisis that led to my layoff. I hadn't lost my job because I failed. I'd lost it because they were stealing the company dry. And Jessica filed for divorce the very next day. The luxury trips, the new car, their downtown condo with the rooftop pool, all of it paid for with stolen money. The prosecutor's statement hit me hardest. The defendants had shown a clear pattern of escalating theft and zero ethics, choosing their own luxury over their coworkers' livelihoods. I read that line again and again. Their crimes had helped cause the layoffs, my layoff. The ramen dinners, the rent panic, selling plasma, all partly because Brandon and Jessica were stealing millions. I felt sick, then furious, then something close to satisfaction. Not just justice, poetic justice. While I'd been scraping by thinking I was worthless, they'd been living off stolen money. And now everything was falling apart for them. Diana called. "The prosecutors want to speak with you. You're a victim, not a suspect. Your testimony helps establish the timeline." I met with them the next week, gave everything I remembered: Brandon's vendor access, Jessica's knowledge of the payment systems. They already had most of it. My details filled in the gaps. One prosecutor said they got careless. New cars, vacations, a condo way abo.